engine, reduced power. Well, that's not great. Welcome back, I'm Tedward. Welcome to Garage 42, where I store my cars, and welcome to a pretty unique test, a la 80s car magazines. One of the lovely patrons here at Garage 42, Aaron of Wheel and Good, has quite a prolific collection here, and 3 of his cars seem to fit the bill for 2010s era sports cars. And today we're gonna go ahead and drive them and figure out which one we like the most between myself, Aaron, and Edwin, who is currently taking care of some business inside Garage 42. He's the operations guy. But we're going to take the 997.2 Carrera S, the Audi R8 V8 with the 4.2 liter, and the Aston Martin Vantage. All of these are facelifted cars. These are the ends of the run, despite the fact that this 997.2 is actually the first year. It's a 2009 of the .2, and it has PDK. So these cars all have a lot to offer, but one of the greatest things about them is that they're all properly depreciated, except maybe that 911 holding on to value a little more than anticipated. They're all between $60,000 and about $75,000, and this is the question. Which would you have if you only had to have one? Now, Aaron, fortunately, doesn't have to make that decision. He gets to have all 3. But what is it about these cars that attracted you to multiple versions of a sports car?
So I've been driving the 911 for a number of years. It's our family favorite. We've actually got about 70,000 miles on it. And it's that combination of it's just right in terms of analog experience, but at the same time, it's modern, it's reliable. It has a lot of the amenities you can use for driving it on a daily basis and stuff. And then I realized at the time, the Aston Martin Vantage, the Audi R8 are kind of a similar mold. And we've enjoyed the 911 so much, we figured, why don't we give the other 2 a try?
Let's get some quick specs. I've written this down just so I can rattle this off quickly. So we've got 2 V8s and a flat 6. This flat 6 is the 3.8 liter. This is the first year of the direct injection, I believe, on the 911. Makes 385 horsepower. It has a PDK, the first year of PDK in 911. So I'm very curious to see how that behaves, because I just got out of the all-new 992.2, which is a hybridized system. It has torque fill. It's as fast a shift as you can get. So this is the most unfair day for me to test that PDK. Then over here, we've got a 2010 naturally aspirated V8 Vantage with the 4.7 liter V8 making 420 horsepower. And behind it, the 2014, a little bit newer, Audi R8 with the 4.2 liter V8 that we're awfully familiar with. That has the S-tronic gearbox, so a dual clutch, not the R-tronic single clutch, and that makes 430 horsepower. So all in a similar realm of weight and power. The only difference here is that that R8 is going to be all-wheel drive, and this Carrera S is not a 4S. That's a rear-wheel drive car. So they all kind of serve the same purpose, but approach it a little differently, whether they're mid-engine, front engine, or rear engine. So I say let's just get out and drive and see what we can find. Now, Aaron, of course, being the analytical man that he is, has assembled a bit of a scoring chart. Now, I like to go by feel. Aaron loves numbers, and I'm going to have to assign numbers for the first time to try to grade these cars. So what are the criteria that we want to look at today with these 3?
So I'm doing a throwback to the 80s in terms of scoring, where the last score is an overall score. So you can rate the car on its entirety and how you feel. But everything else, it's going to be a range from the engine, the transmission, comfort, handling, ergonomics. There's a whole bunch of sub-criteria we'll be looking at to see how they all stack up.
Fantastic.
But in the end, it's the overall that matters.
Agreed. All right, so I think I'm going to start off in that R8, and then we're just going to swap along the way and see where we end up and find out if we actually have a preference amongst these cars, because I can tell you right off the bat, I have a preference, but that may change over the course of the drive. So let's start them up and get out there. Everyone's getting started, but I actually think this might be one of the better sounding startups. So let's get this R8 going. Door open, of course. Oh, we love a handbrake. This is why this 2010s era was the best, because there wasn't such crazy infotainment stuff. The S-tronic gearbox is a little different than a normal PDK looking type thing, right? So neutral is over to the right. Reverse, you pull back. We go back to neutral like that. And then to get it in drive or automatic, we're gonna push it there. If we go forward for an upshift or backward for a downshift, it goes into manual mode. Same is true with these paddles. Or you click back to automatic mode. So that's kind of where that stands. But this V8, oh, it's a little tricky to compare against that V8 in terms of how good it sounds, because that 4.7 liter is really magical. Very quick to respond on the gearbox front. What's wild though is that this steering takes a good bit of lock. Like, it's not a tight rack. It's actually like a very luxury focused steering rack. It feels like I've got to put so much energy into turning this wheel a pretty good distance to get it around a corner. So that's like the only thing I've come to adapt myself with, which is so opposite of what like a new Audi R8 or Huracan is like. Give the cyclist plenty of room. So I am in stiff mode. It's still reasonably compliant. I think it's so wild, the difference between a brand new modern sports car compliance versus a 2000s or 10s or teens, because cars used to be softer. They had a little bit of body roll. This has a little bit of body roll to it, and that's good. I like that. It makes it drivable and usable. And there are times where if you're in just soft, normal mode driving along, you'd kind of forget what you were in until you go by a glass building that shows that you're in a mid-engine supercar looking thing. This makes for a great weekender too if it wasn't your daily driver, which it could be. But when your weekender has extremely limited visibility, it becomes pretty dangerous because it's something that you're not necessarily used to. This has like a big bubble of a cabin. The rake of this windshield is like deceivingly shallow. It's not like a Huracan where it's like flat, or an Aventador. So you actually have a nice tall roof line. I can see out of these windows. They're below my shoulders. So I do have to put a bit of thought into the front end of this vehicle. You could hear it just going skipping along, but look how much steering input that took to get it around that corner. It's a little more than anticipated for a car like this. It doesn't have the outright speed that you would almost anticipate it has, but it is fast enough, and it revs out to 8,000 RPM. So if you keep the revs up, it's a very happy motor. It's very good to drive. And I've got to give this thing a lot of credit for its brakes. It does feel over-braked, which is a good thing. What are you thinking right now? Because I had a retaste in the R8, and there's so many things that I like about this car. It feels incredibly well built. It has the build quality of like of an Audi. It feels solid, and I really like that, but it takes so much steering input to get it around a corner. The front end feels a little light, a little weak in the grip department, but that transmission is just a world above what I know these other cars are.
I totally agree with you on the transmission, right? It's four-wheel drive, so it's going to pull a little bit on the front and stuff. The transmission's amazing. but it feels, as you say, it feels really solid. Like, you're like, okay, this is clearly a high quality, well-built car. I'll be curious to see what you think on that dimension with the other two.
And Edwin, this is our Garage 42 operations guy.
Hello,
What are
hello.
you just having a good, you just sound like you're having a good time.
Oh man, the exhaust note on that thing, unreal. The downshift's my favorite.
I feel like I gotta save that one for last, so.
That one, what I like cars that get twitchy on corners. So when you're off-road and it gets squirrely, it gives you that good feedback, doesn't scare you. But the power's good, it's tight. I noticed the 911 going down, just taking bumps like nothing.
100%.
Like the way it's supposed to. That car is a little more jarring, but intended.
All right.
You expected it.
Before we reveal too much about our thoughts, let's get into the next one.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's jump in to the 911. Ooh, that does sound good, but I've got a flat 6. Yes. So this is a much more familiar place for me. The only thing about this car that is a bit of a bummer is because it's early PDK, it doesn't have the sport design wheel with the proper paddle configuration. And look at this, PDK, normal stuff, right? Except this was before they had figured out that back is actually an upshift and forward is actually a downshift. It's reversed. Forward is an upshift. That's not proper. But otherwise, we're in a really familiar place. This definitely immediately doesn't scream the same build quality as that R8. The R8 has a much more pronounced vibe of high-end stuff. This feels a little Volkswagen-y, which is fine because the performance matches up. We've got sport mode, sport plus mode, we've got suspension stiff, we've got PSM off. We're gonna leave that on. We don't need to be going too crazy today. But our proper 5-pod gauge cluster with our tack front and center. And actually pretty nice that back, even then, they had the tire pressures lined up on the center. Like all the cars, we have a handbrake. We like that. So I think I'm immediately gonna put it in sport mode. PASM Sport. Porsche Active Stability Management. And you may notice there's a lot of glare off of this dashboard. That was actually like a recall. They sent him a set of polarized sunglasses. Porsche sent him polarized sunglasses because that's how bad the glare is on these. And I'm not using a polarized filter right now, so. Oof. Big difference in shifts from this to that R8. Oh my goodness. This car is just so easy. It's so easy. Oh my goodness. This is like the Miata of sports cars in this realm of these expensive cars because it just drives like a car. It does exactly what you anticipate it to do. There's no questions asked. Oh, engine reduced power. Well, that's not great. The 911 may be out of the fight. We've got a fault code. And you know what? It makes sense because when I was in third gear, it wasn't giving me the upshift. The 911 of all the cars was the one I anticipated to be the most reliable, but now we're in limp mode.
Limp mode gearbox?
Limp mode, maybe. No, it sounds like a misfire.
so.
One pump, that's the only reason.
No pump?
If only we knew a guy with a tow truck.
Well, so today I'm going to take full advantage. I'm going to be the best dressed tow truck. I'm doing it in this outfit. So now...
Well, here's an inadvertent advertisement for the capabilities of Garage 42 because Edwin has a tow truck. Usually this is designed to make deliveries to customers when they're swapping out cars or transporting them to service. But today, thankfully, Edwin, our trusty colleague in this journey of testing these cars, is going to be useful in bringing the 911 home. And oddly, it matches the tow truck. So this is a Freightliner. It's a bit smaller than the one that we use for the toter home. Pardon the noise. She's loud. But luckily, we can just flatbed this directly to the shop or back to Garage 42 where we can sort this out. We believe it to be a fuel pump failure, so I think that may put the 911 out of the running. The reason these have fuel pump failures, as far as I know, is that this was the first direct injection 911. So the 997.1 was port injected, and 997.2 they went to direct injection, which means this has a high pressure fuel pump. And if you remember in the BMW days, they had issues with high pressure fuel pumps on those as well. So what's happening is you get one low pressure fuel pump that pulls fuel from the tank, and then the high pressure fuel pump is what sets it up to be the direct injection spray into the engine, and we think that is probably the failure mode. So anyway, that's the unceremonious end for the 997.2 today, but let's get it on the truck. All right, let's see what she says. E1026, fuel system, fuel system.
Trouble code most commonly indicates an issue with the high pressure fuel pump. All right, there we go. Need a new fuel pump.
So now that the 997 is unceremoniously going home on the Garage 42 flatbed for a pretty predictable problem, and luckily it was exactly what we thought it was going to be according to the check engine codes. That's not bad.
Bad fuel pump.
Bad fuel pump. Now we've got the Aston. So the Aston's cool because now not only did we have front, mid, and rear engines, we had a left ignition on the 911, a right ignition on the R8, and now we have a center ignition with the emotional control unit. Hard to beat that. Now, one of the anti-theft devices in these cars is actually just the parking brake, because a lot of people don't understand how this works. So I've described this in a million different videos, but my journalist colleagues continue to ask me regularly. I'm in an Aston Martin. I'm afraid to ask how I put the handbrake down. So it's currently engaged. So we pull up until you feel tension, press the button, and down, and away it goes. That's it. That's all it is. And it's a nice thing that it does that, because some cars don't have the sort of like limp, flappy part of it, and they actually just stay up or stay down, and that makes it very difficult to get into the car. How do you beat that? That is a ridiculous exhaust. Seriously, that's raucous. I forgot how good these sound, and I prefer this over the V12. The sound.
It's got that guttural V8 noise to it.
There's something really angry about it.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about Astons, I've always had a little bit of a love-hate, because I love a manual Aston, but sometimes I get frustrated with the throttle tuning. Or even the Vantage, I think, is the best iteration of that. But one of the things they get right is the steering feel, the steering inputs. R8 takes so much input to get it around a corner, whereas this Vantage, it's tight, it's sharp, but it's not so tight and sharp that you're gonna accidentally cross a lane like in a Lamborghini. So this is actually testing me here, because I did not anticipate this was going to be the car that I wanted the most, and now it is. And it's not just because it's a manual. I think it's because it has the most, it's so trite, but emotional connection.
It does.
That little, it sounds good, but that is what I mean when you gotta like pull out of the throttle just a little bit early on these cars to really nail it down. But ergonomically, the only complaint I have about this car is where the cup holders are, because my elbow just kind of sits in a cup holder, and I think that's very strange. I could lift the seat up, but then I wouldn't be in the seating position I want, but it wouldn't be a hand-built Aston vibe if something wasn't just ergonomically awkward. You'd have to have that.
They clearly designed a cup holders with the automatic transmissions.
Definitely. And the automatic transmission, remember, in these Vantages was a single clutch automated gearbox, which were not great. People did not love them. It was of a time, of an era, kind of like the F1 in the Ferrari era, but not as good as what you'd find in a 360. Oh, these are great gauges. We love anti-clockwise tachometers. There's just something really special about this that's missing now in all of our cars, because everyone's gone to screens. And while screens can show you a variety of information and put up maps and all this stuff, I do think that there's some specialness lost amongst new cars that have gone completely digital, because the same way the clientele would not necessarily be wearing a Garmin watch or an Apple Watch to their fancy dinner, I don't understand why they'd want that in their fancy car. It's shockingly good at turning in, and that's what you don't expect from the front end of this car, but it should be, because it's so wide. You've got a nice muscular platform to play with here. But look, we're at 3,000 RPM, all the low-end torque in the world, and that's what the R8 doesn't have. The R8 needs revs. This doesn't. And the one thing that I've always been frustrated about with these Aston tachometers is they don't show a red line. There's that little skip, that boom, you know, because you got to pull out early. I still get reflections, but not quite as bad as the 911 because it's a dark dashboard. The thing you got to watch out for, like this one has encountered the dreaded and common cracking of these wood waterfalls in the center. Very common. Any Aston interior guy worth his weight has like a dozen of these sitting around in an attic somewhere waiting to be replaced.
It's actually hard to find ones for manual transmissions.
Is it really?
Most of them are automatic.
Because they don't have the buttons.
They don't have the buttons, so you have to get an automatic specific waterfall.
That I did not think of that. Of course. If we were being persnickety concourse judges, the only thing missing is the pen. But you say you've got the pen? It's in the wrapper.
It's still in its original wrapper.
I did not know they came that way. We've just gotten back from our drive and we have two cars here out front because the third car, I believe, is still sitting in that tow truck. The Porsche didn't make it back under its own power, although that's okay. It's a minor issue, but it did impact the scores. And we do have scoring here. So we went ahead and Aaron, who is a very methodical person, he's very thoughtful about the way he purchases things, and we've ended up looking at engine, transmission, brakes, handling, ergonomics, comfort, ride, value, fun to drive, and then an overall rating that is not an average of these things, it is simply our emotional connection to this. So let's look at what this is cumulatively, because you've added up all of our scores for each, and quickly let's just see what stands out here amongst these categories.
So I'd say a couple things stand out. First is Aston Martin, first and fun to drive. Got 5s across the board from all 3 people. Ergonomics, it actually had the lowest score, which stands out as a 9. And then Porsche on value, Aston Martin came out with a 15 and Porsche with a 9. So that is quite a contrast on it. The overall rating, the cars were all relatively similar. At the end of the day, there's certain preferences for certain ways that you want to use a car. Do you want to take it out for 30 minutes on a Saturday morning, or do you want to take a weekend trip in it? I think each car is going to be a little bit different on that, and maybe we can talk more about that in a podcast or something. Everyone loved the Aston engine, got the highest score on the engine category, but the R8 really jumped out in terms of transmission and brakes.
The exhaust note on the Aston for sure. Favorite to take home is the R8. This car, I like stepping it out and feeling the ass get loose. But the R8's the favorite, but the Aston sounds really good. Like Aaron said, for a 30-minute drive, exhaust note, roaring through second through fourth and downshifting. It's kind of hard to duplicate that even with a good DSG.
The final thing that I think we can't overlook is value. And I think we all came to a pretty reasonable consensus that the Aston Martin is the best value, bang for buck, because that's like 60 grand, whereas the other two are around 70 to 75. And we also agreed that the Porsche was the lowest value just because maybe it's a more common driving experience and they're slightly overpriced and holding their value more than we'd like to see. As an owner, I'm sure that's a lovely prospect, but as a buyer, maybe not. So, all right, I think that's it. We'll show the final score sheets for all of us. I think I graded them pretty harshly, but that's gonna do it for the comparo on the 997.2 and the later versions of the V8 Vantage and R8 V8. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Check out the podcast because I believe Aaron and I are going to get on the mics. Maybe Edwin will pop in if he gets back in time to chat about what we just experienced. But this was really special. So thanks, Aaron, and thanks to Garage 42 for making this all happen. Don't forget to respect the drive, and we'll see you in the next one.